Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Office Hours with Jess. Today, I'm going to be giving a little introduction about qualitative methods and how this really is an opportunity to give participants a voice in research. As you all know, I conduct a lot of qualitative research in a lot of the studies that I do. So I'm really excited to share with you all some of the principles of conducting qualitative research today. Quickly, our learning objectives for this presentation will be one, to understand why and when to use which qualitative methods. Two, to identify and describe major concepts related to qualitative inquiry, study design, theory application, data collection, etc. We're also going to learn to write an overall qualitative research question for a study, and then also talk a little bit about ethical considerations in qualitative research. So I'll start with a quick overview of what is qualitative research. Then I will go through some methods and talk about research questions, how to write research questions for qualitative studies, and then we'll end on a short discussion about ethical considerations. So qualitative research, it provides data about the meaning and context regarding people and their environments. And how this is different from quantitative research is that it is not about the numbers. It doesn't test hypotheses. It rarely uses statistics. Qualitative research is meaning-centered, context-specific, doesn't have to be necessarily representative. It uses participants' own words, and a big piece is that it is iterative and you can adapt qualitative research studies as you go. There are many ways of conducting qualitative research and many different methods, and they're all listed here. But today I am going to focus on two main types, which are individual interviews and focus groups. The rest on here, participant observation, content analysis, etc., those are all also types of qualitative methods that essentially look at, again, the participant behavior, what people are posting online, etc., less again about the numbers. So individual interviews are one-on-one, in-depth interviews with participants. They generally happen over the phone, in person, or now with current days, a lot is happening over Zoom, which has become a really powerful tool in being able to conduct qualitative research way more conveniently. You also want to build rapport during these individual interviews, and you have an interview guide that you're able to sort of use and follow, and that is part of the research process of developing that interview guide for the interview process. Similarly, focus groups are sort of like interviews, but instead of one person, it's a group of people that you are facilitating a discussion with. It happens in person or on Zoom. It's very hard to do these over the phone. And again, you have a focus group guide to that you will develop in advance and help you guide the discussion with the group. And what's really powerful about focus groups is that people are able to bounce ideas off one another, which is something you don't get on a one-on-one individual interview. So why conduct qualitative research? So qualitative research can help you obtain data on perspectives that are useful on their own and can serve as the building blocks to future research or triangulated with other data that you have. And again, qualitative research can be formative research or also follow-up research. So something that you do to inform a quantitative study, or you might do a quantitative study and find that there are some gaps that you need filled with qualitative type of data. Qualitative research questions. So this is what I want to move on to next. How do you think of research questions that are more qualitative than quantitative? And it is a little bit of a different way of viewing research questions and studies. So I have here on this slide two examples of quantitative research questions. So the first one is, what is the prevalence of e-cigarette use among adolescents aged 12 to 18 in Los Angeles, California? And two, what are the rates of adolescent emergency hospitalization after legalization of cannabis in California? So I just want you to take a quick note of what is sort of similar between these two questions that make these quantitative. I have it underlined here, trick question. So again, these two research questions are about prevalence, rates, so numbers. I'll show you kind of how we can sort of still ask similar questions about these topics, but make them more qualitative. Overall, qualities of a good qualitative research question include being clear, focused, concise, and complex. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you be both concise and complex at the same time? And that's sort of the magic and the beauty of qualitative research that I will be diving into next when we talk about how to craft these questions. So, an overall research question is open ended, has many possibilities for answers, but also specific enough to be studied. So, again, how do you find that balance? Well, let's practice a little bit right now. So, let's take that first quantitative research question. What is the prevalence of e-cigarette use among adolescents aged 12 to 18 in Los Angeles, California? How would we ask a more open-ended qualitative research question about adolescent e-cigarette use? So think about it for a moment. So how can we still ask about adolescent e-cigarette use, but make it more qualitative? How about this? In what ways do the school and home environments influence adolescent e-cigarette use? So this is more not getting at numbers, more getting about context, meaning, etc. So that's the kind of shift of what is a quantitative versus still a specific but open-ended qualitative question. So I want you to take a moment and try it. Think about a research question for a topic you could study or you would want to study using qualitative methods, and draft a little question that is open-ended while also being specific. And then bonus, consider which qualitative methods you might want to use to answer this question. Would you want to use interviews, focus groups, or maybe some of the other ones listed earlier on that slide? All right, so I'll let you do that little activity and reflection on your own. I do want to move on and talk a little bit about ethics in qualitative research. So ethical considerations are important in qualitative research because you are usually having face-to-face human interactions for a lot of this qualitative work. So just know that informed consent is very important in this process, and it is very different when it comes to qualitative methods. So keep that in mind, as you are putting together your study, submitting to IRB, et cetera. Do you keep in mind that there are subtleties and power differentials involved in the relationship of the researcher and those being researched? So it's really important to really think about what stance researchers should take in regard to their quote subjects or participants. And how should researchers present themselves? These are all really important to think about kind of your position as someone who does research, and talking to these face-to-face human interactions and collecting their voice and their stories from them. Other important things to consider are confidentiality. Again, this is complicated as you are spending time talking to people, and it can sometimes be difficult to maintain, but still very essential. And again, you want to avoid any kind of harm to your participants. So, avoiding any sort of physical, emotional, legal, economic, social, political, anxiety, stress, and again, avoiding any kind of exploitation. So it's really important before you enter into a community where you are going to be conducting qualitative research and talking to people in that community for your study that you consider these things. If possible, I would involve community representatives at all stages of your research from the very beginning. So, getting involved in the community and then staying involved in the community and partnering with the community in doing your research. This I could do a whole nother presentation on community-based participatory research, but that goes very hand in hand with qualitative research. And again, as I discussed earlier, it's really important to decide how you want to represent yourself with your participants. And again, think through that power differential. And, the title of this whole presentation is that you are giving your participants a voice. And I think that that is what is at the core of qualitative research. And what you should always come back to is that by talking to your participants and letting them share their stories, you're giving them a voice, you're empowering them, and you want to keep that thinking and that mission alive as you are conducting all of the steps in the research process for qualitative studies. So I want you to also think about this too and reflect and try it. So think about the research question that you wrote earlier that I prompted you to do. And then I would just, take a couple moments to draft a few bullets of what actions you might take before starting to research and effectively enter the community that you would be working with to address your research question. So again, you can pause the video, take a moment to reflect, but think about this, as it is important to consider these ethical considerations when doing qualitative research. Now, I do want to just end on a summary of everything we went over. So, first, I went over how interviews and focus groups are two of the many types of qualitative research methods. Remember that good qualitative research questions are clear, focused, concise, and complex. And then, lastly, really think about how, when you're entering the community, you as a qualitative researcher must think about the ethical considerations. Qualitative research, not just quantitative research, is a rigorous and important type of research methodology and gives a direct voice to participants who may otherwise be left unheard. This is why I love qualitative research and will continue to do it throughout my career. I hope this gave you a nice little introduction to what qualitative research is and a little taste. If there's interest, I most likely will do this anyway, but there will be a follow-up video where I dive a little bit more into the tools and methods and actually show you how to code and analyze qualitative transcript data using NVivo. So something to look forward to if you're interested in the analytics as well. But thank you again. I appreciate your wanting to learn about qualitative research. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on another episode of Office Hours with Jess. Thank you.